الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Assalamu brothers. This week I was given the topic of Ramadan, and this is inshallah the discussion that I'm going to have with you. Now, as all of you I'm hoping are aware, Ramadan is very fast approaching. So, this time next week we will definitely have started, the month of Ramadan. What you're finding is that a lot of people are actually discussing Ramadan at this moment in time, and they have been for a number of weeks, making preparations for it, giving advice in terms of what we should be doing, etc. But I was given this topic of Ramadan, but with a slight twist. So the discussion I'm going to have is going to be a little bit different to what you may have already heard. But it's an important discussion. And I want to talk about Ramadan as a month of secularism. And I'll explain that to him. I'll explain that to you as we go along. But in essence, what I was told to talk about was how Ramadan can become a month of disobedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, it confused me quite a bit initially when I was given this title, and I thought, how can this be the case? How can this month of Ramadan become a month of disobedience when we know that every person, no matter how far he may be from the deen, how bad he may be, how many sins he has committed and so on, we know that in this month of Ramadan, each and every person tries to improve themselves, tries to better themselves by doing more in terms of worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So how is it possible that this month of Ramadan becomes a month of disobedience, becomes a month of sin, becomes a month of earning the displeasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So it's an important discussion. And what I want to explain is how this happens, and how Muslims, many Muslims actually, young and old, who have experienced many Ramadans, they fall into this trap. Yeah? So this is what I want to explain. But before I do that, I'm going to give you the normal maybe reminder, because we must know for certainty and we must remember that we are entering a very blessed month. Now we are entering a very blessed month, and we need to take advantage of this month. Shall I wait? Okay, so we need to realize that we are entering a very blessed month, and we need to take advantage of this month. We need to build our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we need to draw closer to Him. So these are the things that we have to remember. And just to mention a couple of hadiths. So Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, he reported that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said that no servant fasts on a day in the path of Allah except that Allah removes Jahannam 70 years away from his face. So every single fast that we keep, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He moves Jahannam 70 years away from the believer's face. Yeah? This is the reward of just a single fast. And in another hadith, Abu Umama, he mentioned that he came to Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and he said, order me to do a deed that will allow me to enter Jannah. Order me to do a deed that will allow me to enter Jannah. And Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said, stick to fasting, because there is no equivalent to it. Yeah? So we know that this is the month in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He revealed the Quran. That Jibreel alayhi salam, he was sent down with the revelation that changed the whole of mankind. This is the blessed month of Ramadan that we need to first and foremost remember. This month, my brothers, it contains a single month. It contains a single night that is better than 1,000 nights of worship. Can you imagine this? That how much do we try to do in a single night? That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He is saying that in this one night, if you were to worship Him, then He would give you the reward of 1,000 nights. This is the month in which Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said that if you do Qiyam with faith and sincerity, that Allah, He would forgive all of your past sins. Now who in this room would not want this? Who in this room would not want to have a clean slate? That no matter what sins he has committed in the past, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He forgives all of them. We all do. But this is the month in which we need to take advantage of that. And this is the month in which the simplest thing that we do, whether it is to give salam to somebody, whether it is to give somebody some food, some water, do iftari with them, whatever it may be, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He will multiply that reward for us. The month in which the shayateen, they are locked. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says that He has chained the shayateen so that they can't whisper to you, they can't encourage you to do the bad. And this is the month in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's opened the doors of mercy, the doors of reward, the doors of Jannah, my brothers. We have to sometimes try so hard in order to, make Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala happy with us. But in this month, Allah says that He has opened the doors of Jannah, so if you want it, then you come and get it. That this is the month in which we are entering. So we must be mindful that this is a very great month in which we're coming to. Inshallah, we have 29 or 30 days that we really need to take advantage of. But Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he also warned us. And this is what I want to focus my discussion on. He gave us a warning. And what did he say? He explained to us about those people who will go through the month of Ramadan, but they won't benefit from it. And you might think, how can somebody not benefit from it? You wake up in the morning, you do your suhoor, you fast, you pray, in the night you read Taraweeh, you read Quran. But how can you not benefit from the month of Ramadan? How can this be the case? And in one hadith, it's mentioned, and this is reported by Abu Hurairah, and he says that Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he was climbing upon the minbar of the masjid. And as he climbed, he said, Ameen, Ameen, Ameen. So 3 times he said, Ameen, Ameen, Ameen. And the Muslims who were around him, they felt, they were a bit confused. They said, what is Rasul saying? Nobody's asked him anything. Nobody said anything. So why has he said Ameen? So they inquired. And the Prophet ﷺ, this is what he said. He said, when I was climbing upon the minbar, it was Jibreel, the angel, he came to me. And he said, whoever reaches the month of Ramadan and does not have his sins forgiven, and so he enters the fire of Jahannam, may Allah distance him from us. And he says, say Ameen. He goes on, so I said Ameen. So Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam in this hadith, but is giving us a very, strong warning that there will be individuals who will go through the month of Ramadan, but they will be unfortunate in the sense that they will not have benefited from it. They will not have had their sins removed, and they will enter the fire of Jahannam because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not forgive them. So this is what I'm saying, that it's important for us not to only consider the rewards and the benefits of this month, which inshallah we can discuss, which I'm sure there's many talks that have discussed this already. But I want to spend a moment just looking at the dangers of this month, the dangers that lie ahead. What are the problems that we may experience? Why is it the case that somebody may not benefit from this month? And like I said at the beginning, how is it possible? How is it possible for somebody who wishes to obey and worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this month, how is it possible for them to fall into disobedience? This is inshallah what we need to think about. Now, this is just my own experience of whenever Ramadan approaches, I always tend to hear a couple of phrases. People always trying to get into the mood of Ramadan. And one brother, he was telling me, this year, he said, there's a sister that he works with, and she's decided to take some leave from work. She's booked 2 weeks off or 3 weeks off or whatever it is. And when he asked her, look, why have you taken this time off? Her reply was, she goes, I need to get into the zone. Yeah? I need to get into the feel and the mood of Ramadan, so I want to take some time off before Ramadan and during, so that I can start to kind of prepare myself. Yeah? And it made me kind of think, what does this mean? You know, when people say, I need to get into the zone, what does it mean? Yeah, and this is what we'll discuss. And it reminded me of another kind of example that I came across. And this is a couple of brothers that I know myself. And what they said, look, every Ramadan goes, we are busy. Yeah, we are busy from the beginning of Ramadan to the very end, because we are busy. We're distributing leaflets, we're having discussions, we're organizing events, we're organizing circles, because every moment of every evening, because we're out and about. Because for this year, we want to take things a little bit slowly. We want to slow down. We want to do less of those things and maybe spend a bit more time on our songs. So, in their mind, they said, okay, this month, we want to forget, doing all of that da'wah or all of those kind of actions, and we want to start doing more tarawih, reading more tahajjud, reading more Quran, doing more zikr. Yeah? And what it made me realize is that what these guys were saying was actually what probably most people in this room would say. Now look, we need to focus on these things and maybe do less of those dawah related activities, or maybe less of those political kind of things, and maybe focus on these kind of individual actions. And I think majority of the Muslims actually feel this way, especially as they come into the month of Ramadan. So Ramadan in essence has become a month of individualism, has become a month where people start to think about only themselves. They say that this month is about me. Look at how much reward Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala He has made available. And everything that we do, all the little actions that we do, whether that's praying, whether that's qiyam, whether that's reading Quran, whether that's making dua, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He will give us so much reward. So people start to think that in this month, I want to care about myself. I want to put away the good deeds that will benefit me. And I want to focus less. I want to concern myself less with everybody else. And this is the mentality that I want us to think about today. Before we leave, I want us to think about this mentality and actually have the correct mentality. Now, the good deeds that we may have planned for this month, brothers, I want to make it very clear, and I will, say it again at the end here, we must continue them. We must strive to be a better person in this month than what we were in previous years. So we have to measure ourselves. I read a statement from, I can't remember which person it was, unfortunately, but they said that if a person has not bettered himself today than what he was yesterday, because then he has wasted that day. Yeah? So this was measuring yourself on a day-to-day basis. So for us, as we approach Ramadan and we can measure ourselves from last Ramadan to this Ramadan, definitely we must strive to become better. We must strive to read more Quran, pray more Taraweeh, do more Tahajjud, all of these things. But this mindset and this thinking that this month is only about me, is only about myself, the point that I will make is that this thinking is very dangerous and it does not come from the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is, brothers, this is why I've understood the title, that Ramadan has become a month of secularism. It's become a month of secular thinking. But what does this mean? It means that we see reward and benefits in only certain things. In only certain things. Thinking that they will bring us closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala without actually realizing that we may be neglecting some of the most important obligations in this month. Brothers, this thinking is very dangerous for each and every one of us. to think that we can categorize Islam into spiritual and non-spiritual actions, to think that only actions related to ourselves will bring us closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whilst we neglect those actions and duties related to our community, related to our ummah, to politics, to ruling. And what is really sad about all of this is that this thinking of separating and of categorizing Islam, where Muslims think they are doing something good, this thinking itself has come from non-Islam. This thinking itself has come from non-Islam. So this part-time attitude, where religion is only meant to be a personal matter, that, okay, in a week or in a day, I only have to do certain rituals, that I don't need to do any more than that. That, for example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He can tell me how I dress, how I speak, He can tell me how I pray, how I fast. We can refer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for our personal matters. But when it comes to life, when it comes to society, when it comes to politics, when it comes to ruling, to think that we do not need to go back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this thinking is not from Islam. And this is the mentality and the thinking that we find is affecting the Muslims. And it's more so in the month of Ramadan, the month where we need to actually get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that we start to reinforce this type of thinking. So brothers, this is my advice, that we need to realize that Ramadan is not a month of separating the deen and the dunya. But we must remember that this is a month where we need to understand the meaning of deen and realize that it has come to regulate all of our life affairs. Not just in Ramadan, but throughout the entire year and throughout our entire life. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says in Surah Al-Furqan, in one of the ayat, actually the beginning ayat of the surah, He says, تَبَارَكَ الَّذِي نَزَّلَ الْفُرْقَانَ عَلَىٰ عَبْدِهِ لِيَكُنَّ لِلْعَالَمِينَ نَذِيرًا. That blessed is He who sent down the criteria of right and wrong to His servant Muhammad, that he may be a warning to the whole of mankind, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He sent down this Quran, and we need to connect this ayat with the month that we're coming in, because this is the month in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He revealed the Quran. He started the revelation of this Quran. And look at the ayat that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He reminds us of, that He sent it as a criteria for everything in our life. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He said in another ayat, and we have sent down to you the book as an explanation of everything, a guidance, a mercy and glad tidings for those who have submitted themselves to Allah. Brothers, this is the meaning of Islam, of deen. So as Muslims, we can't carry this idea of secularism, or even view that some aspects of Islam are more important than others. Rather, we need to be the ones that follow and believe in Islam and the Sharia as a whole, the complete guidance, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He said. So for example, the verse where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to establish regular prayer, or that where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that Allah has permitted trade and forbidden usury, or where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, and for the thief, male or female, cut off their hand, his or her hand. Or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says that the believer, they are nothing but brothers, reminding us of our responsibility and duty to the Muslims everywhere else. Or where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, and rule between them by what Allah has revealed to you. These ayat, my brothers, they are no different from each other, and we need to view each and every one as important as the other. This month of Ramadan is about gaining closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to earn His forgiveness, to earn His reward, to earn His pleasure. This month is about being a true slave to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, about becoming a person who has taqwa. This is what we say, isn't it? That this month is about building taqwa, i.e. fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, being mindful of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But who is the muttaqi? Yeah? He is the one who fears Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and does what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has obliged and stays away from everything that He has prohibited. And this obedience, my brothers, it has to be in every single matter. So we can't choose, we can't choose in which areas we will worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which areas we will be obedient to Him, and which areas will we forget about during this month. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, again, He reminds us. Now He says, so do you believe in part of the book and disbelieve in some? And there's a very famous example that I'm sure most of you are familiar with. And this was the example of Hazrat Umar. Yeah? And Hazrat Umar, subhanAllah, when you read some of his quotes, you realize, he was very harsh when he came to certain matters. Very harsh. And he came across certain people who were praying. And these were people who were praying in the masjid, and they did not leave the masjid. So for them, they were just praying constantly. They didn't want to do anything to do with outside of the masjid. And Hazrat Umar, he inquired about these people, and he said, look, who are they? And he was told that these are the muttaqi, the people who fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that they are constantly remembering Him, they are constantly worshipping Him, they are constantly doing ibadat. And what is amazing about Hazrat Umar's statement? He did not refer to their action as even prayer. He didn't say that they were praying. Because he went to these people and he said that the great number of times that you raise and bow your head, because it does not deceive me. This is how Hazrat Umar, he saw the action. He saw the action because he said that the real deen is about being cautious and meticulous in the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and refraining from what Allah has made haram and acting in accordance with what He permits and forbids. So brothers, in a nutshell, this is what we need to remember during this month of Ramadan. That we need to take Islam completely. That we can't just chop and change and take only certain aspects. So in conclusion, I want to share with you a couple of examples that I came across actually only the last few days. And they allowed me to understand the importance and the role of ibadah. We talk about these individual actions of praying, of qiyam, of tahajjud. It allowed me to understand what is the role of these things and why they are important. Because like I said, I don't want you guys to go away, especially the younger guys. I don't want your parents knocking on my door and saying, look, you said to our son that he shouldn't engage in these things. That we don't need to now increase on our tarawih, we don't need to do qiyam, we don't need to read the Quran, we don't need to do zikr. This is not what I want you guys to take away from this. Because whatever small action that we do in this month, if we do it with sincerity, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He will reward us for it. And we need to do that action, whatever it may be. But I hope what I have addressed is this thinking that Islam is confined to only these actions. That if I do only these 5 or 6 actions in this month, then I have completed the whole of my deen. That I have completed each and every single responsibility and duty that I have. So it's this view that needs to change. It's this view and this thinking that we need to change. And I give you an example of Dawood alayhi salam. I was actually listening to Awlaki and he mentioned it here. And it's mentioned that Dawood alayhi salam, he was a king and he was a prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he was someone who was busy with life. He was engaged in establishing the kingdom. He was fighting the disbelievers, establishing the justice of the deen. He worked to maintain the services for his people. He was busy looking after their affairs. So Dawood alayhi salam, as a ruler and a king, he was doing all of these actions. He was doing all of these actions probably more than what all of us in this room are actually doing. But in one narration of Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam, you know what he said about Dawood alayhi salam fasting? He said the best fasting is the fasting of my brother Dawood alayhi salam. And he said about his prayers that the best prayers were the prayers of Dawood alayhi salam. But also about Dawood alayhi salam, Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he said that Dawood alayhi salam, he would never run. He would never turn his back from the battlefield. So this is the point that we need to remember. And Awlaki, he mentions this. that for the believer, especially the ones who are engaged in da'wah, of politics, of ruling, of looking after the affairs of the people, big responsibilities, that these moments of contemplation, these moments of remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when you are standing in the middle of the night and there is nobody around you and it's just you with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that deep connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he mentions that these are the moments of energy, my brothers. These are the moments of motivation, the drive that the believer he needs to continue in his work. So these are the actions that we need to do in this month. The moments that we need to experience to build our steadfastness, to build our patience, to build our reliance upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to make our backs firm, so that whenever we face any trial or tribulation, and we face this daily, whether it's at work, whether it's amongst our friends, whether it's from society at large, all of the peer pressure that you face, that you experience, how do you think you will stand these trials? How do you think you will overcome these tests? It is with the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So not for a single moment, brothers, must we think that we've done something because of our songs, that it was only because of our actions. But we must remember that we engage in the action during the day, and we stand to pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the night, so that we can see the fruits of our work, so that we carry the da'wah of Islam during the day, that we have discussions with people, we interact with them, we engage with them, we tell them about the events that are coming up. So we pray long in the hours of the night, so that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he can change and open the hearts of those people that we're discussing with. And this, my brothers, is how we must behave during this month of Ramadan and actually beyond, that we fulfill our complete and total duty to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I pray that we become like the likes of Hazrat Umar. It's mentioned, and this is my final example, that Abu Muslim al-Khawlani, he came to Medina, and he came to deliver certain news that part of Asham had been liberated by the Muslim forces. So he came to Medina looking for Hazrat Umar, who was the Khalif of the Muslims, he was the ruler of the Muslims. But Abu Musa al-Khawlani, he came during the afternoon, the noon time is mentioned. And in the Arab society, there was custom for people to take a nap. Because of the heat, they had a rest and recuperated. So as not to disturb Hazrat Umar, Abu Muslim, he decided to go to the masjid for a little while. And he started to inform the people that, look, this is the good news that I bring to you, that the lands of Asham, they have been liberated. But the news reached Hazrat Umar. And so Hazrat Umar, he called Abu Musa al-Khawlani and he asked him, he said, why did you not come to me first? Because surely as the Khalifa of the Muslims, as the Amir of the believers, you should have come to me and told me about this news before you went to the masjid. And Abu Muslim, he responded by saying, that, oh Amir al-Mu'mineen, he goes, but it was noontime when I came into Medina, and I did not want to disturb you from your sleep. So he made an assumption that Hazrat Umar, he was resting during that time, because majority of the people used to rest. And this is what I want you to remember, the reply of Hazrat Umar. And inshallah, it's this type of mentality, this mindset, that I want us to build in our songs. And like I said, we need to carry into Ramadan and beyond. Hazrat Umar, he said, how can I sleep? How can I sleep? If I sleep during the day, then I would not be fulfilling my duties and my responsibilities to my people. I would not be fulfilling my duties and responsibilities to this ummah. And if I sleep during the night, then I would not be fulfilling my duties and my responsibilities to my Creator, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This was the mentality of Hazrat Umar. Brothers, I pray to Allah that we are able to take advantage of this month, to understand how we must worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as He has required us to worship Him, to learn about our duties and our responsibilities towards Him, but also towards our communities and our ummah, like those who are currently suffering, in the regions of Syria, Palestine, Kashmir, Burma, Iraq, and across the entire world. I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He strengthens us, that we are able to carry His call and establish His justice in the world. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen.